Hey folks, welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm Justin Riley and we have a great show for you today, so I hope you stick around. First, I'm joined by Sean Brummer, who is from the South Central Library System. Sean, welcome back to the program.
It's great to be back, Justin. Thank you.
Always great to talk with the library. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about community partnerships.
Right.
This is a big part of what the library does because you're very much, the goal of the library, the mission of the library is very much to be infused in the community. So talk to us a little bit about why do public libraries partner with community organizations?
Well, that was a great introduction. Thanks, Justin. We partner with community organizations so that we can reach the public, so that we can provide the best service to the public and provide some new and innovative and very necessary programs and services. When we partner with community organizations, we're providing amazing service to our entire public.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's always great things going on at the library that people often aren't aware of. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the examples of library partnerships that you have?
Sure, I would love to. Well, they vary. We have some great partnerships. Examples of partnerships include libraries that work with organizations that serve the homeless. Libraries are helping their homeless patrons find lodging, find places to sleep at night, find food, find places where they can go to even find jobs. We also have great examples of libraries partnering with organizations such as the Wisconsin Humanities Council or Wisconsin Public Television, where these organizations come in and help libraries run and facilitate really thoughtful and engaging programs for the public, talking about a book, talking about a film, talking about issues that have a lot of interest to the community.
Sure, absolutely. And I think that that's really cool that you're helping, you're in homeless shelters and so forth, because it's not so much just about, well, hey, everybody, let's read a book. You're giving books to homeless people. It's actually helping them, meet their needs on a daily basis.
And that really is fulfilling our mission. Our mission is to provide information to the public. Information comes in many different forms, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about this.
Right.
Whether it's book or electronic or information about some real, very specific and necessary needs.
We've talked a little bit now about who is benefiting, homeless people and so forth are benefiting from some of these partnerships. Can you elaborate and talk a little bit more about who are some other folks that are benefiting from these library partnerships?
Yeah. We all benefit. When I first started partnering, I was very much involved in family and youth services. So some of the benefits that we see are to families, that by public libraries partnering with child care centers, with UW Extension, that we are really reaching into the lives of families and helping enrich family life. So we really all are benefiting, whether you're coming to a program, coming to the library to attend a program, to receive a service, or just to look for information. Some of our partners provide materials and resources to us as well.
Can you talk to us a little bit about where these partnerships can be found? Where do they take place?
They take place all over. Of course, some of the partnerships take place in our libraries,
right.
Or at some of the partner organizations. But what we're really seeing are opportunities where the libraries and partners are getting out into the community. So working at school open houses, working at community fairs and community events, at health fairs, where we're really showing the public that we're partnering with organizations so that we're all being efficient. We're reaching shared goals and we're reaching shared audiences together.
What impact have you observed with these partnerships with community organizations? Because you've been involved with this for a little while now.
Right.
What have you observed as the impact?
It's really incredible. One of the first impacts that I've seen is we're reaching people who typically may not be coming to the library. There's a lot of reasons why people don't come to the library, and there are reasons why we need to reach out and work with our partners to help our public understand that there's something at the library for everyone.
Really quick before we go, let's say that I'm an organization that's interested in, and I want to reach out to you as the library to partner with you guys. What are the first steps that I need to take?
Sure, thanks for asking that question. What you need to know if you're in an organization who's interested in partnering with a public library is understand our mission. Go to your community library's website and take a look at what their mission is. and what their purpose is, and think about how what you're thinking about offering, how that would support the library's mission. We love partnering. We love working with community organizations, and we really need to know that the partnership benefits both the public library and the organization.
Shawn Brummer from South Central Library System, always a pleasure to talk with you.
Great. Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Stick around, there's more Talk of the Town coming up right after this. Welcome back to Talk of the Town. With me now is Maria Welch from the Float Factor. Maria, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to be learning about flotation therapy today. This is something that I've heard a little bit about. It's gotten a lot of media attention. It's been on the Today Show, Dr. Oz, ESPN, New York Times, a lot of coverage. Is this something, is float therapy, first of all, tell us a little bit about what it is, and is it something that's a new concept?
Actually, it was first invented in the early 1950s by a neuroscientist, and he was trying to create an environment where he was limiting sensory input, and he discovered that it had all these benefits, and so he started doing further research into what was then called sensory deprivation, and he actually developed the first commercial tank in the 1970s. But floating kind of went out of favor for a couple of decades, but now it's experiencing a huge resurgence all over the country. New float centers are opening everywhere.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think that interest, why have we had this resurgence in interest in floating again?
I think there's a couple of main reasons. I think people are just incredibly sensory overloaded right now, having to constantly monitor and check their devices, and it's like there's nowhere to get away from it. And they're finding that an hour in the float tank really gives them this great space to just completely unplug and disconnect. And people are really finding that's extremely beneficial for them. And it kind of gives them a fresh perspective, you know, more clarity, more peace of mind when they come out, which is great. And also people are really looking for alternative methods to deal with stress and anxiety and chronic pain. And there is research to show that floating does lower stress hormone levels. It helps reduce pain. A lot of doctors are trying to get patients off of pain medications, and we're actually getting quite a few referrals from physicians for that.
I think anytime we can just take a little vacation and just be human beings rather than human doings,
yes,
I think that's really, really important. So
exactly.
How is floating in a floating pod different from floating just in water in general, like a swimming pool or something?
Yes, so when you float in this pool or even in the ocean, you still have to expend some effort to kind of keep yourself up. Our pods have 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt, which is about like putting 250 pounds of Epsom salt in your bathtub. So it keeps you extremely buoyant. So you actually don't have to do anything. It's just all about just laying there doing nothing. And in fact, many of our clients are so relaxed that they fall asleep in the pods.
Wow.
And then the other thing is the water is heated to skin temperature. Mm-hmm. So it's warmer than a pool, but not as warm as like a hot tub. So this produces an environment where you basically don't feel any temperature sensation, and you really don't feel your body after a while. So you're kind of just floating in space. And in addition, you can turn off the lights and the music, which are options, and that will even further limit the sensory input that you're getting.
How big are these floating pods? I mean, they must be pretty big to accommodate 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt. They're
actually used by major sports teams. So the New England Patriots have the same pods that we have, so they will accommodate a large football player. They're about 7.5 feet by about 4.5 feet wide.
Wow.
Interior dimensions. So they're pretty good. They have about 200 gallons of water in them. But they're only about that deep.
Oh, wow.
So you can't drown in them.
Okay, but even you can still fit 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt. That's incredible.
Yeah,
That's
so
incredible.
It's all dissolved in there. Yeah.
So how, I mean, we've talked a little bit about some of the benefits. You've touched on that a little bit about, reducing stress, that sort of thing. Are there any other benefits to this?
Well, there are definitely, a couple of main benefits. So one of the things that happens is your brain actually spends about 80 to 90% of its energy managing sensory input and managing your body in gravity. So we're not like falling over, but we don't really think about that.
Right.
But our brain is always monitoring where we are in space. So in a float pod, you have none of that.
Yeah.
So your brain is actually freed up to do all of this other stuff. So you can get to these higher states of consciousness. You can get extremely relaxed. relaxed. You can be more creative, you can learn. So there's a lot of different possibilities that happen with your brain. And then physically, you're actually totally supported, so there's no pressure or stress
Sure.
on your muscles, your joints, your bones. So all the oxygen and nutrients and blood can flow freely, which is great for healing and recovery, reducing pain, and then all the Epsom salt, of course, is another benefit that's well known for pain relief.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to talk with you a little bit more about this, but unfortunately we're out of time. But I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and giving me the education about this. So Maria Welch from the Float Factor, we talked about flotation therapy a little bit today. Log on to their website, give her a call, and check it out. Thanks so much for coming on the show
Thanks
today.
for having me.
Don't go away. There's more Talk of the Town coming up right after this. And welcome back to Talk of the Town. My next guest is going to talk to us a little bit about how hearing loss can affect the way we connect with our loved ones, especially around the holidays. I'm joined now by Dr. Veronica Heide from Audible Difference. Dr. Heide, welcome.
Thank you, Justin. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So how common is hearing loss? And this is just not a problem as we get older. I mean, people are afflicted with hearing loss at younger ages too, right?
Absolutely. Hearing loss can occur at any age. And it's only as we get older that we have other factors that contribute to greater and greater challenges. Changes in the body's metabolism, noise exposure, family history. They all kind of add up over the original cause of the hearing problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say are some early signs of hearing loss?
What?
Right? Right? I was waiting for that, folks.
So someone asking to have things frequently repeated.
Sure.
If the volume of the TV right now is blasting everyone out of the room, that's another sign that maybe there's a problem.
Yeah.
So if the family member sets the volume at a comfortable level and it's too loud for everyone else,
Right.
it's time to think about getting help. So you can use CTW as a good check of hearing levels.
Right, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So there are obviously going to be some consequences other than the fact that you just won't be able to hear, but are there other consequences for not getting your hearing loss treated?
Absolutely. There's an increased anxiety. The individual with a hearing loss can actually retreat into their own world, stop going places, stop doing things, and actually an increased risk of falling because scientists at Johns Hopkins are saying if we use all of our cognitive abilities on other resources than paying attention to our balance, that it actually can increase our risk of falling.
Sure.
So those untreated consequences disrupt relationships. You're not going to go to a party
Right.
because you can't understand what's going on or have a conversation with someone over a cocktail. So you choose to stay home. Well, you give up a
Yeah.
lot over time, and usually it happens slowly.
I always find it so interesting because people don't usually have as much resistance to going to the eye doctor and getting their eyes checked and then getting glasses. I mean, we see at least 50% of the population, 100% of the population here on set wear glasses, and it's not as big of a deal, but for whatever reason, people I think are a little bit more embarrassed to admit that they have hearing loss.
It's a challenge. We thought at first it was a cosmetic issue,
Right.
but now we have cosmetically viable solutions, and still people wait at least 7 years from the time they know that they have a problem until they actually do something about it.
Wow.
We thought it was financial, but in countries where hearing aids are not, they're given away basically.
Right.
Then it's still the number of people seeking help for their hearing problem is still the same, and people still put it off. And the consequence for doing that is really dire. We know that there's an increased risk of dementia and Alzheimer's if you don't connect with the world around you and stay involved with your auditory landscape.
Wow, that's amazing. So other than the fact that people might be a little embarrassed about it or they're not ready to admit that they have that problem, why do you think people are so resistant to that?
I think that people think that it's a sign of aging, and they don't want to cope with that realization. They just want to ignore it for as long as possible.
Right.
So
And hope that it goes away.
hope it goes
Yeah.
away.
So technology, we just have about a minute left here, but I want to talk a little bit about like hearing aid technology because I know that's come a long way in the past 15, 20 years. Can you talk to us a little bit about the advances that have been made in technology for assisting people with hearing?
Absolutely. In the old days, hearing aids were just amplifiers that turned everything up and down.
Right.
And person virtually lived with their finger in their ear. But nowadays, hearing aids are little tiny mini computers. They're more powerful than your laptop computer. And they do things that the old hearing aid technology never could do. For example, they'll take high frequency sounds and transpose them into the range where the person can hear them.
Sure.
They do noise reduction. They have directional microphones, speech enhancement algorithms. So these recipes, these software recipes, really distinguish one hearing aid from another.
And that really is only in the last 15, 20 years, am I right?
Absolutely.
And that's so interesting that in just that short amount of time, it's gone from just amplifiers to these sophisticated computing devices.
Exactly.
I mean, that's incredible. Dr. Veronica Heide from Audible Difference, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. And make sure you get your hearing checked once a year.
Absolutely. Don't go away. There's more Talk of the Town coming up right after this. Stick around. And welcome back to Talk of the Town. I'm joined now by our good friend Eric Hewitt from the Medicine Shop in Monona. Eric, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
So it's getting to be cold. People are starting to get sick. You're hearing a lot more coughs and sniffles and that sort of thing. Why is it that people tend to get more sick during the winter months than at other times of the year?
Possibly just because they need one more thing to deal with, during the holidays and things like that. But no, I think it comes down to a couple of things. I think, number one, our bodies are working a lot harder to stay warm and has all that activity going on. People do get stressed out. That adds to it. And then also we're, I think, in closer proximity and closer quarters oftentimes. We're oftentimes inside the houses.
Yes.
With a lot more people, expose a lot of people, and therefore get exposed to more, germs and things like that.
Houses in buildings tend to almost act as incubators during this time of year. It's like that's just where if you're sharing a space for an extended period of time and not getting out and getting fresh air, I mean, you're going to get what everybody else has.
Absolutely. Extended family comes in and they can bring what they have with them. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some things that people can do to try to stay healthy this season?
I mean, I think there's a couple of things, and this is getting to be more of a general, knowledge kind of thing, but we can go over them anyways. Washing hands is always going to be, paramount. Because those germs are going to, get on your hands when you're touching things, touching tables, that kind of thing. So washing hands can really kill off some of those bacteria. Using hand sanitizer does similar things. And then just simple things, coughing into your elbow rather than into your hands, covering your sneezes, that kind of thing, and washing your hands, very frequently are all great things to do.
And obviously, as a pharmacist, you offer some products that people can take over the counter. What are the general rules regarding what people should and shouldn't take over the counter?
Whenever somebody comes into the pharmacy at Medicine Shop to ask me about that, I always ask them first and foremost, what are your symptoms? There's a lot of multi-symptom cold products out there that you may be treating a couple of different things that you're not experiencing. So my general rule of thumb really is to treat only the symptoms that you have. If you don't have a cough, you don't need to take a multi-symptom cold pill that has something to deal with cough. Similarly, if you don't have a fever, you don't need something with something like that in there. So really, the main thing is to only treat what symptoms you're having and experiencing.
That makes sense because you don't want people to take medications that are not necessarily and put those types of things in their bodies if they don't need it.
If they don't need it, don't need to take it.
Absolutely. So I often, we hear a lot about products like vitamin C tablets, zinc supplements, airborne tablets, etc. Do you find that those things work?
I'm not a huge proponent of them. I mean, you
Oh,
may
really?
find
Okay.
people that really do like them. Vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin. That means that if you load yourself up with vitamin C, whatever is more than what your body needs, you're gonna go to the bathroom and get rid of,
Sure.
that kind of thing. So the most that those things have shown to be beneficial in is they've been shown if you take them at the very first onset of cold, they may reduce the duration of the cold by about a third of a day. And that's if you start very early on. And that's, you get it in one study and then the next study doesn't show as much, as great evidence of it. So it's really something that, to me, there's not a huge benefit of it, but there have been people that say they swear by it, and I'm not going to get in the way of
Sure.
telling them differently with that. But
If it works, then it works.
yeah, I guess, yeah.
So what about zinc? I mean, have you had experience with zinc at all?
Again, zinc, very similar.
Okay.
I mean, it's one of those where if taken right away, there has been studies that have shown, but it's really the benefit, a third of a day.
Yeah.
So if you're a 4-day cold and, you only have, 3 and
3/4 a
Yeah,
day.
exactly. Is that really helping? Yeah.
Right, yeah. So what about patients with high blood pressure? I mean, are there products that he or she should avoid taking?
Big thing with that are things called decongestants. So when you're really stuffy, so those are your Sudafeds. There's also phenylephrine that's available over the counter. Those things can raise people's heart rate and therefore blood pressure. And so that's something that you really want to limit taking if you do have high blood pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. And diabetic patients, are there certain things that they should avoid or use with caution?
Yeah, and those, it goes back to sugar. There's a lot of sugar-free cough medicines and products out there that you want to make sure, even throat lozenges for that matter, sometimes those have sugar in them. So you want to avoid things that have, excess amounts of sugar in them. And then oftentimes those people also have high blood pressure problems as, kind of a complication of their diabetes. So, using caution with the decongestants again is really, something that should be looked at.
Eric Hewitt from the Medicine Shop in Monona, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks again for having me.
Eric joined us from the Medicine Shop in Monona and talked to us about some ways that you can stay healthy during this holiday season. Thanks for joining us here on Talk of the Town, and we'll see you next time.